Episode 38. Here we go. This episode comes to you from deep in the heart of Kansas, I think. I actually don't know where we were in Kansas. I just know we were south of Kansas City by about an hour and a half. I say we because this podcast is myself, the one and only John Dudley, and Trevor Thompson, a longtime friend from my old career. We were at the World Turkey Hunting Championships. And I'll just leave it at that. I think we talked about it a little bit. All I can say is after 2 days of hunting turkeys, I know what a turkey decoy looks like. I have no idea what a turkey in the wild looks like. I know there's a lot of people who get very excited about turkey hunting. I personally am going to struggle to be that person. But I digress. The cool thing about this trip was being able to be there and see Trevor actually pull back his bow for the first time and fire an arrow. And it was cool for me because that was me 6 months ago. I had shot my bow in my backyard, so I was not starting from what I would call the absolute baseline, which in this situation, if you have John looking over your shoulder and coaching you from that absolute baseline, I think anybody who is listening to this, who knows anything about archery, realizes that Trevor was the winner of the lottery in the archery world for sure. And he deserves it. He's an awesome guy. But it was great to sit there and watch somebody else kind of starting the journey that I started last August. And then 10 days from now, I think, we're going to go hunting again up in British Columbia, where we will be joined by the one and only John Barklow. Now, I'm going to totally get off track here anyway, but I'm gonna fire this off in the hopes that it has the effect I'm looking for. The podcast with John Barklow was number 35. We were hunting in Lanai. We talked a lot about that, but we also talked a lot about survival type stuff. And the feedback that I got, I wouldn't call it overwhelming, but there was certainly a lot of it. And people were asking about survival specific scenarios, or I should say specific survival scenarios. And what I would like to do while I'm with Barklow, because we're going to be up there for, I think, 7 or 8 days, is I want to record some podcasts with him, and Dudley will be there too, and Trevor, and the input of all four of us on very specific situations that people have questions about when it comes to survival. So if you have a question that is specific to survival or hunting or the combination of the two, go to the clearedhotpodcast.com and hit the contact button, write your question in, and then just hit send, and I will do my absolute best. I think the plan is right now to just kind of try to do a podcast every night while we're up there. I'll do the best I can. I'll write them all down, and I'll get him and Dudley and Trevor to chip in where everybody can in their expertise and answer as many of them as possible. Because one thing I personally realized, again, talking to Barklow, is that he is an absolute wealth of knowledge, and it would be a shame not to exploit that, for lack of a better term. But anyway, back to this episode. World Turkey Hunting Championships. We had to take a break halfway through and needed to blow up a car. It's not a big deal. Kind of was just an average Thursday in Kansas probably. And that's about it. This one's going to be hunting-centric, bow-centric. I often get asked where should people start, both on equipment and on shooting. And I remembered to actually ask Dudley this on the podcast itself, talking about what he did with Trevor with both his equipment and the shooting instruction that he gave him. So hopefully he can answer those questions for people, because I am not the person to answer them. That would fall to Dud. So here you go. Episode number 38. Hope you enjoy it.
Okay, got the red smoke.
Gun run, north or south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby. Give it to me. I need it. Get cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
I think every bow hunter on the planet hates your guts right now. You've been cleared hot on way too many hunts this year. I've completely lost track. It all started out with, I want to get this guy on one hunt, so I know he started out right. Next thing you know, we're like, what should we do next month?
I was going to say, so we shouldn't talk about May?
Yeah. Actually, what is
May,
that, 10 days
2
away?
days? Yeah, 2 weeks
10
from now.
days away.
10 days away.
I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I'm going to call what we did the last day and a half hunting.
Nope.
For you guys, it was.
No, it
I
wasn't.
saw the inside of a blind I heard finally a turkey gobble today in the distance. I've not seen one in the wild. I assume they look like the decoys.
We were mostly just looking.
Well, that I would say is a lot of hunting, but at least you're moving around. In my experience, that was pretty bad just to sit there and watch the wind.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's what gets really tough for Western hunters to come and whitetail hunt because they're not used to sitting, waiting. And I talked to Trevor. I said, Andy's already a little bit itchy to start running around and doing things already. I said he's had like too many fun action-packed hunts.
Yes.
Where you're mobile and stuff. And I told him I said he needs to think of it like his old job where you might need to sit and wait a little while till that shot opportunity comes in. But I know it's probably funner when you get to kick down doors and run past propane tanks that are on fire.
I mean, though, the difference being I could call up and say, hey, can you guys send a predator over there and look down and find me a heat source? I knew what was around me.
Tell me where the thing is.
Yeah, this was sitting in a blind and like having my head down and looking up, and there's a cow with his head in the blind. that was that experience that I had. It was certainly a change of pace.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked to have seen their behavior, the puffing up that you guys are talking about, and you showed me some videos. Obviously, we were talking about shot placement when we were at house, but I would have liked to see a tom just kick the crap out of a decoy, like you guys said it had happened.
Oh yeah, well you would have too. But the thing with hunting is, this is exactly what you experienced that first time you went to Utah elk hunting, and you were describing that to me. I thought, Jesus, I've never experienced anything like what you're describing to me. You're like, it was insane. And I was sitting there thinking like, where the heck was this place? I've never had nothing like this. And then you went back a few weeks later and you're like, dude, this is like a ghost town.
Yeah.
And that's what we experienced here.
Yeah.
Turkeys, their breeding is in the spring. They need warm weather. They need warm weather for being on their nests and, having their hatchings. And when it's really cold, they're still tight in groups. They're not really as responsive to calling. It's a lot like people that go elk hunting and they think that first week of September is, they got to be in rut, and all of a sudden nothing's talking back. Talking back. And then all of a sudden the next group of hunters that might come into a place and they're hunting those next 6 days, they're like, man, you couldn't even sleep at night. They're bugling so loud. And we're on the verge right now of having really good turkey hunting conditions. We're in the right spot. The birds are here, but our conditions sucked. Wind couldn't be worse for hunting, and we had 30-mile-an-hour winds yesterday. Yep. It was also 30-something degrees cooler than average. So we've had the elements stacked against us, and at least with this particular hunt, which I'm still happy that I did it. It's not quite like turkey hunting where I told you, I said, we're almost doing a turkey hunt where you're not able to do any recon, and yet you're totally pinned down to just say to someone, yeah, I've seen a turkey over there before, because we have blind draws for the property that we were getting to hunt for this championship. So it's not like we were able to call around and find someone that said, yeah, I've got a bunch of birds that are roosting on this ridge and they like to head down the hill at the first light, where we could at least have a starting point.
You might as well just describe what it is we're actually doing here, since you alluded to it a little bit. Yeah, I mean, because people are like, what are you talking about? You don't know how to hunt turkeys?
I thought you'd cover it in the lead-in.
I probably will, but I might forget too. So
yeah, don't double do it.
I know. Let's just say we have constrictions.
Okay,
to what we can do.
We're at a wild turkey championship, the World Turkey Championship.
Yep,
which
Kansas.
All of us were invited here by Traeger, mainly to come in and get to experience these hunts with some outdoor writers and some publication specialists. So it was really cool. We got to meet some new friends. We got to meet some awesome new people. But we also came into this championship, which I actually underestimated. I've never done anything like. I've never hunted for like a competition. But this place is, I mean, I think first place was like $25,000.
My jaw hit the floor a little bit.
$25,000 for first, $15,000. Everyone got huge prize packs, amazing food. all the time, but I was never here to win this thing. I wanted to be here with my buddies. I mean, we're all DQ'd.
Yeah,
all of us.
We're all DQ'd because there's so many rules that went with this. All of us were kind of just daydreaming during the rules of the competition, and we ended up yesterday following all the rules for about a day, and then we said screw it, and we all just hung out together today.
The second we opened the car door because we had no cameraman.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We're immediately disqualified
because you have to get every kill on film so that you're able to show that you shot it on the property, you drew, that
in
you
addition
did it legally.
to the, what do they call that guy who's with you?
A regulator.
He has to see it also.
Yep.
But with that much money on the line, though, I can see why they do that.
Yeah.
At first, when they were talking about it before they discussed the prize purse,
it seemed a little silly.
Well, I just was like, what? I mean, are these things like albino turkeys? Like, what's going on here? And as soon as he said $25,000, I said, oh, okay, I understand now why this is so serious.
Yeah.
Because I'd be pissed.
Mm-hmm.
Because what do you think the margin for first and second place is?
I don't know. They're literally measuring hair.
Is there a way to stretch hair?
spur.
People out there like
they're measuring quarters of an inch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I've seen so many. I've seen some people go to some big. I don't know. I've seen people go to some big ways to cheat to win an archery competition. I don't even know how to describe it. I've seen people do some of the dumbest things to win like a $2 trophy. And I'm just sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, you've spent more time thinking about how to cheat this thing than if you would have just practiced an extra 2 hours. You probably could have won the dumb thing.
Just do a couple more practice
shots.
So
it was serious, for sure.
Yeah.
It's exceptionally serious.
But it was the real reason we're here is we knew Traeger was going to be here with some new product that we were excited to see, which is really awesome for the hunting. We can't talk about it, but for the hunters out there, this is going to be a game changer. Guys that are doing some. I'd
say for anybody who's mobile.
Anyone who's mobile, this is going to be a game changer. Super cool, especially
off-roaders, hunters,
everybody. Especially if you're a Traeger fan. And then the other thing was Trevor's going to be coming on his first hunt now. Our circle of new archery friends is getting bigger every month. So
got a couple
Trevor's
more in the queue.
Yeah, and we've got some in queue. So Trevor's going to be going on a bear hunt with us in 2 weeks. So I really wanted to find time where we could get together and all do some shooting. Even him getting out here and being able to move around a little bit with turkeys. Yesterday when he followed us around some, and I was able to just talk about things that I would do if we were up in BC.
Yeah, like elk or bear.
Yeah, I said, in BC it'll look a lot like this. If we spotted a bear there, step one's going to be, what's the wind doing?
Yep.
Here's the wind. Okay. Then the next thing we'd look at is what do we need to do to do that? And we talk about, using the terrain, and obviously from your background, you felt comfortable.
Way to do it.
Yeah. And you probably gained confidence just in the fact of knowing that, because your background, you already have training there. The only element that you're missing, I think, is going to be understanding the behavioral patterns of each animal. And then once you have a basic understanding of that, then making the shot, which I think is going to come very, very easy too. But learning, like Andy came here not understanding that turkeys are so different from elk because their eyesight is their number one.
I mean, I knew they were different.
Yeah.
They don't have horns.
You
knew they were a little smaller.
Andy doesn't know that. He hasn't
You did
seen
describe them, though. That's true. I didn't. They could look like an elk. I'm not positive. The decoys don't look like an elk. The ones in the wild just may. But you actually described them as they act a lot like elk.
Yep. They act a lot like elk in the fact that they get groups.
Yep.
The one male or two males have, their little flock or their harem, and the males are calling to the females, and they, their calls are they're responsive that way when the time's right. So you're making hen calls. You can gobble at them too, but you're making hen calls, and those gobblers are gobbling to you, pretty much trying to say, no, I'm here, you come here, and then you're trying to entice them, and then they literally come looking for you. And they're coming in looking for you. And my hunt yesterday was awesome because both times the first bird that I called in for Chad just came right into 12 yards, puffed up, just literally came in almost sideways, just ready to jack kick our decoy that we had, our little adolescent male decoy. We call him Jakes. And then in the evening, we did a tactic that we call running and gunning. So we were with a new buddy of ours, Ian, and he had a shotgun. I was pretty impressed. He's turkey hunting with a breech shotgun.
About a 4-inch barrel on that
thing. I mean, he looked like he was ready to jack someone's home. But
that Britt wanted to kill some thunder chickens.
Yeah, and we heard a gobble. A turkey gobbled back to us in the afternoon, about 4 in the afternoon, and then we ended up calling that one. The turkeys ended up sneaking by him and Chad Mendez, and they came up and were literally standing 7 yards from me as I was like tucked in on the ground, leaning against a tree, looking at them out of the side of my eye. And I had to wait for them to lose interest in me to decide to like go back to where they came from. And then when they finally went back past him, he got shots. And you're allowed.
Do you think they saw you? Or did you think they went to where they heard the noise? Because if their vision is that good.
From what I saw this morning with Chad, because we went out and we're calling and doing the same thing, running and gunning, and we were trying to call them in, and we think that they might have seen the cam on Chad's bow. And they were looking, and they stayed like 40 yards away, and they'd wrap around the side. He kept calling. They'd look, wrap around the backside, do the same thing over and over. They just would not come in.
Turkeys and moose have the ability to pinpoint that call to the spot
audibly.
Yeah, moose, like bull moose, you can be in a fixed position and make a cow call one time, and all of a sudden across the whole lake you can hear a bull moose return a call. You're like, whoa, and I mean it's way off, and then all of a sudden you see the moose working, and it'll literally come to within this room of you and be looking around. Their ability to pinpoint sound is amazing. Those turkeys, when I called to them the very first time, I'll guarantee you they knew within 5 to 10 yards exactly where I was standing on that ridge. And they came, as they came up, and I knew they were walking past Chad and them, I wasn't going to call at them more because I would want them to stay within those guys as long as they can. I actually was trying to call them past them like you would an elk, and they made it past them without
too far past.
Yeah, and then they were too far past, so I had to just sit there. And they were there for probably 15 or 20 minutes because they knew hens were calling at us from right here.
Wow!
So they were standing right around me, and they were gobbling and gobbling and gobbling. Like, where did you go? We know you were right here. Where'd you go?
If they had hard busted you, would they just run off?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Bolt.
If they would have if I would have turned my head 15 degrees and they would have saw the brim of my hat move like that, they would have been gone.
Huh?
Yeah, you have to be frozen. They're different, and that's what makes them cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they're small, but they're also tasty.
I'm gonna feathered ninjas.
This new recipe I got
which
working.
We can't talk about that either until you perfect it.
I think it's going to be dynamite.
I know it is, but we got to at least try it before we recommend it to people. I know it's going to be good, but I think we should at least take one bite of it before we say, yes, this is awesome, here's the recipe.
All right.
So here's one I get hit up on all the time because people think I know anything about archery, and it's where should you start? And I think we have the perfect pairing of people.
Ooh, I like that.
To talk about, because I'll get an email probably once a day, hey, I'm getting ready to start. Anytime that's gear related, I just push them over to Knock on Archery and just tell them to watch the videos.
Yeah.
But people, it's cool though that I'd never thought I'd have any interest in hunting, but listening to you talk about it on the podcast, now I'm developing an interest. What should I do? It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Speak of the devil, here's Trevor. Relatively did kind of the same thing, hearing us talk about it or knowing that that's what I was doing. And so I think it would be cool if you just walked people through and talk to him about that whole process, which I would say the shooting portion began last night. Up until then, it was, I would say, the lessons in the stalking and getting used to the terrain and kind of just getting a feel for the flow of how it goes. But I say we turn it over to the master, and he can just answer that question once and for all as to what does it look like to start from. Was that your first time firing a bow last night?
Yeah, ever.
There you go.
This is his first time drawing a bow.
Yeah.
They didn't.
They made me draw it once.
Oh,
yeah,
did you pull one back?
Yeah.
Okay.
They had me pull one back with a non-release.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wouldn't
Release.
fire.
From
wouldn't
place,
fire.
right? You went to go get measured.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think most people should start at an archery shop first, but do a little bit of research, and I think you can go to like Hoyt.com, you can look up dealer locator, and you can find out who your closest dealer is by typing in your zip code. But it would also be good to maybe, call Hoyt, and if you could, the reps are probably going to get mad, but if there's any way for you to get in contact with either, a reputable shooter that you find on Instagram or someone like that, or even the sales rep, to say, okay, I'm in this area and I'm willing. I'm not saying I have to go to the archery shop that's in my town, because sometimes there's ones that do a better job of teaching people than others. Yeah. Some people, it's no different than, getting your tires for your car. There's some tire shops I've gone to, and I would never go there again. They don't.
There's one shop where I live now, and it's a Matthews shop.
Yep.
I don't think they have a single Hoyt in there, and you're going to get the products that they like, and it's a different experience for sure than going to the few that I've been that have a wide selection. And they were there mostly and they moved. Now they have 1 7-yard shooting lane.
Yeah.
So that experience is going to be different than going somewhere where you can actually work some stuff out.
Yep. And maybe you go to a shop and invest some time, shooting a bow. Maybe you want to, rent one and have them, say, I want an hour lesson. I want to rent one. I want to get taught right. And then after I shoot a little bit, I want to decide what bow fits me best, because at that point you're going to actually understand what something should feel like or what it doesn't feel like.
Yeah.
But like I could have you're lucky you got dialed in with your bow. You're dialed. But I could have easily gave you one of these ones that are out here in the barn that are 30 years old, and you would have been like, yeah, it's pretty cool, but I don't know. And then I could have put this one in your hand and been like, wow, that just feels way better. It's quieter. It's easier to pull. It doesn't sound like a 22 firing. So
doesn't have a whisker biscuit.
Yeah, I think
I've seen those.
I think start out with finding a shop where you know that they're willing to give you some lessons, and invest some time in that. Don't feel like you should just go buy a bow and then go home and start watching videos right away to learn. Trying to find the right person to mentor you, at least if it's an hour, is going to make a world of difference.
And Andy and I have seen that in learning a whole bunch of skills, shooting, driving, whatever the case may be, skydiving, base jumping.
They think, I just logged 4 hours on YouTube. I'm basically an expert.
I got it.
It's like, boy. But you can learn a lot. You can have some knowledge, but that doesn't teach you what it feels like to fly in a wingsuit. I mean, you can understand, like, speed is important. You need to maintain your speed. You can flare and deploy your parachute. That doesn't mean that if I give you my parachute, my wingsuit, you're going to be successful.
You're going to figure that out.
That's the gap. I mean, so what does somebody do? So if you can go to archery, what does somebody do if they're in a remote area, though, that doesn't have an archery shop? Do they end up just getting – I mean, how do you do that if you're remote?
It's hard.
You travel.
It's time to go to Kansas City?
I mean, that was me. That's where I started. I mean, I grew up in I got my first bow when there wasn't any archery shops very close to me at all. And then the one that we did have, they didn't have archery techs. You just bought it in there, and then you came home and put it together.
Just a retailer.
They slid you the box across the table.
Here you go.
My first compound bow, my dad put my rest and my sight and everything on it, and I just shot like he just bought an Allen wrench.
Yeah.
And however it was adjusted out of the packet, he tightened it on the riser, and that's how I shot for probably my first 12 years.
How'd it fly?
Whew.
I don't know. I
say you didn't pay for tuning?
Yeah, no, exactly.
I'm joking.
Yeah, I have no idea. For me, all I just did was go out and shoot. I just like shooting, and I hoped that I could find all my arrows when I missed the target. And to me, there was no measurement, so I didn't understand.
There was no metric to.
Right, there was no metric. I just knew that I really found fun in pulling this back, watching this thing fly through the air, and when it hit the middle, I was like, boom.
So you were able to find success even that way, though, like out of the box. Probably, let's just assume it wasn't set up completely. Not that it wasn't set up, but it could have been tuned or improved. But you still found success.
Oh yeah.
So it can happen. So if you can't have an archery shop, I would say, dude, invest the time in a family trip. Go to a destination location, get hooked up. But if you can't, buy an Allen wrench. This is Dudley's advice, and a bow, and you're good.
Well, I mean, listening to a podcast, watching videos, like there are resources out there for people that don't suck.
I tell you what, though, there's
help.
gaps in experience in those
That's
videos.
the problem. Yeah.
But is it better to try and find something, especially if they're in a remote area and have no other resource?
Your series on putting together a bow, that is huge.
That is huge. And I don't want to say that coming off cocky, but
no, I watched the whole
hashtags.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing. And for people who know what I'm talking about, there's a series on the Knock on Archery
YouTube
channel that basically goes, hey, I just got this bow. I have access to a press because they're going to need to at least have some way to work on the bow. And you can go from box to tuning to, there's arrows on there as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a knocked and ready to rock segment, which is the entire bow build. And then I have a knocked and ready to rock segment that is the entire how to build your arrows, start to finish.
And you're in the ball game at that point.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, you're on the team.
I've got people that tag me, that have tagged me in series of photos where they literally have a bow in a box and they like bought a bow press and they put the whole thing together themselves. Like even Torsten, our friend Torsten.
Yeah, it's actually scary. It's awesome if you do it right. It's pretty scary though.
Yeah, it is awesome if you do it right. But our buddy Torsten, he bought a press, and this happened years ago. I had a company that had a bow press, which is what you have to use to actually flex the limbs enough to where you take tension off the strings and you can put new strings and cables on it or whatever. But I found a company that was trying to close out a model of bow press that I really, really like. So I ended up just saying, well, how many do you have left? And they had a lot left. And I just said, I want to buy them all. And I bought them all, and I told my followers, these presses are going to be for sale. And if I'm going to give everyone a month to buy them, and then I'm going to do a series on this is how you work on your own stuff at home. And the amount of people that tag me that are like, check this out, and they'll have a picture of their bow in the box, and then their steps of them literally watching the series and like doing it at the same time, which it is very technical. And I do want to say 80%, or it's not a real number, but I would say 80% of the shops out there could definitely get people doing archery the right way, and you're having a good time and it's safe. But there are, some people are passionate about, I want to learn the right way, and I want good equipment. I want to know it's right. And what happens is when you go to the shops that aren't necessarily putting the time and care into that, then what happens is when you go and you watch that series, or you watch some of those things from a reputable source, you end up saying, wait a minute, mine doesn't look like that. Actually, mine looks kind of like crap. There's probably people that, go and buy, there's probably people that watch tactical gun things on, how to do tactical maneuvers. There's probably guys that teach it that are very good, and there's probably guys that have the most YouTube watches that are probably terrible.
That's the majority of tactical shooting instructors are.
Perhaps I'll put some of those links on this podcast episode as well, just
actually,
for your
can we
entertainment.
Please do that?
People. Yes,
that'd be hilarious.
Yeah, we can aggregate some information.
Okay. I got stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So you covered, sourcing the equipment, but where I think, from an outside perspective, just watching you interact with Trevor, who had never fired an arrow last night, to again this morning and this afternoon he's shooting. If you could talk to him or talk through that progression that you started with, because that's okay, cool, I got a bow, what the hell do I do now?
Well, the best series out there,
technology,
it doesn't look like it's from Earth.
It's funny because one of the guys that's here with us, Tyler, which is a mutual friend of all of ours now.
Yeah.
Tyler was in your position exactly 13 months ago. He had never shot a bow, ever. And he was coming with me. He wanted to come to Oklahoma to be part of a hog hunt that I was doing with some of my UFC buddies. And he said, I'd really like to, I've been wanting to bow hunt. I want to do it, but I've always wanted to learn the right way. So I just pretty much said, I'll build the bow. I'll have it ready. You come in one day before we leave for the hunt. And literally we started exactly like I started with you. Started, you know, here's a release aid. You hold it in your hand. This is what lets the string go. And then it's a video that literally walks through what we've done in the last 13 hours, you and I. And it's Archery 101. It's on the Knock on Archery YouTube channel, and it's with Tyler. And it's literally me in the range. We filmed, it's about, I think it's an hour long, and it's literally like, here's a string, here's a release, and then there's also Archery 102, which is with Tyler, and it's when I actually hand him the bow and say, okay, here's a bow, and he's looking at it like, okay, and I'm like, okay, you're gonna pull it.
Which end of this?
Yep, exactly.
How does this work?
You're gonna pull it for the first time. Here's what it's gonna feel like. So, if nothing else, you could watch 102 or 101 and 102, and you could have I think it would be very good homework before you go into a shop to understand some things. But a big part of what I do,
I can
and
totally see that
really
being
how all of
beneficial
us
to somebody.
met, is because I really try to put information out there that lets people learn techniques that are proven from my experience. I'm 100% not really trying to sell anybody anything. All my information is free.
I was going to say, you don't charge for the
Yeah,
videos.
my information is free. So I try to teach things, and most of my subjects and videos come from when I work with new people, and all of a sudden a problem might arise where they're like, I really feel this. What do I do about that? And then I'm solving, yep, that's a subject I need to talk about. You know, I've got a fix for it, but it might be something I know I hadn't done a video about it. So I put that out there, and those are literally things that Rogan found. And then obviously, Rogan reached out to me on Twitter. And then
Is that how that started?
he called me out on Twitter, and I've got a Twitter account, but I don't really like Twitter.
So you saw like 8
You're
months
like,
later?
No.
What is this?
Actually, I didn't see it for a while, and then someone texted me and said, dude, are you going to answer Joe Rogan on Twitter? And I said, what? And they said, he's asking you. So
like,
he
hold on,
wants
I
you
gotta
to
find my
contact him.
password.
So then I kind of figured out how to message through Twitter, and then we finally hooked up, and I went out and worked with Joe for a few days, and then, and what's great about Joe is with the MMA world, he understands, and I think with his pool MMA, he understands that there's people that are very, very good at what they do in that profession or that world, and then there's also other people that I wouldn't say they're more accurate or they're a better fighter or whatever, but there's other people that their gift is being able to relay information to someone to where they can soak it in. And I feel like that's something that I'm comfortable with. I'm comfortable watching someone shoot or giving information, and then I'm also very comfortable sharing it to the world, which a lot of pros that are still competing, they're forced into, they have to like talk about stuff because they want some attention too.
Yeah.
But for the longest time, it was hard to get information out of people that were, especially me. I was a competitor, so they're like, I'm not going to, if I talk about how to tune this particular arrow shaft perfectly, then if Dudley hears about it or this guy hears about it, I'm going to end up being in a match with that guy.
Yeah.
So, it was hard at one point to get that information, whereas now, I like seeing people get better. I mean, I get a kick out of seeing these posts where people literally say, I just built my first bow, and they show that video.
Yeah.
These are people that, and some of these people may drive hours to get to an archery shop. Whereas when you finally learn that stuff, in the amount of time you're driving in that shop and waiting around, you're able to do that yourself. And then you're able to spend more time practicing. So
they want us to go blow something up. That's what Tyler was saying. It's time to make the car explode.
Oh, God.
One of the activities here at the turkey hunt is we're going to blow a vehicle up. It's pretty normal for a turkey hunt, I believe.
Standard.
You should expect it if you travel around to hunt turkey.
If we don't get a shock gobble at 30,
the end of this.
I don't know how many. I don't even know. All I know is we're in Kansas. Yesterday on the property we drew, I came across for sure an old meth lab. Yep. I mean, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I walked by it, kind of like looking in the curtains that were half melted off the window, thinking, is someone still in there? Like looking at me, is there two barrels like pointing out the screen at me? And then
It was left of a fire on a car door.
yeah, so I go from that to now. Today I'm out trying to focus on teaching you how to shoot a bow for the first time. Meanwhile, guys are mixing 30 pounds of tannerite with. Meanwhile, they're running a handsaw next to 5 gallons of gas.
And we're
Next to a
grilling
trailer.
steaks.
And we're
5 feet
grilling
away.
steaks, and then there's a bunch of old propane tanks next to the side-by-side. It's like, what in the hell is going on around here? Definitely not OSHA approved. So
I was wearing
anyway,
my
that
safety
leads
belt.
into we'll get back. We can
hit
always
pause.
come back.
Yeah,
we're gonna
pause.
pause. We're gonna blow up a car, and then we're gonna come back.
We'll let
No
you know
big
how it
deal.
is.
All right, we're back.
Okay.
Oh, got to close the door.
Oh, closing the door.
That's
Closing
okay.
the door.
We can still say how much of a circus that was.
Yeah, while the time passed, Andy just took a Volkswagen Jetta, and now it officially could possibly be put back together as a go-kart.
Possibly. Slight smoky flavor.
It is smoky.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, the guy asked me if I want to shoot a car and blow it up. I don't know any other answer to say than yes, but it's not what I would normally do on a Thursday. So we were talking about archery, I think. I wanted to hear from your perspective, Trevor.
Yeah,
Since
we need Trevor's perspective.
yeah,
Because he learned yesterday.
Yeah.
I did at 11 p.m.
So what do you think, though?
Told you.
Well,
I'd give
yeah,
you-
you started in the field earlier that day.
I
did.
told him I'd give him lessons on Wednesday,
Yeah.
so I had to follow through.
So, started out on the turkey hunt.
Yep.
We went out, and following Dud around was interesting because it was a lot like patrolling.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of the concepts are the same, you know, using the dead space, understanding direction of sound carrying. But
Did
it
you
was
notice
cool.
how large his legs are,
Oh, yeah.
and you have to take
I
two
wasn't
steps.
walking
Yeah.
fast at all yesterday.
No, you weren't.
Your normal pace.
But your normal pace is like
just-
my normal
yeah.
plus one.
What?
Your
Yeah.
normal
I was
pace
in- I
is
didn't
just underneath record time for the Boston
I don't even think I
Marathon.
took it out of. I don't even think I put it in gear yesterday.
No, you were in first. I was in more.
Really? Oh
Well,
my god.
I'm 5'9". I'm medium sized here.
It's an accurate description. So sorry, you were on the hunt, dead space. I just
Got
like to
around
point
how
out
short
every
I
time
am.
I get the chance that Dudley is inordinately tall, and it's hard to keep up with when he runs.
Using the dead space, understanding how the sound will carry, how our movement is, like you were talking through, like not moving around when the turkeys are there, what their sight's like, what the smells are like for some of the other animals, and that's interesting to hear and see, and then start applying. And I got to apply some of that this morning and watching
Chad Mendez.
Chad
By
Mendez,
the
Chad
way,
Mendez back there
Chad
eating-
Mendez has a fight in 2
eating
months.
snacks,
Meanwhile, he's
doing
eating
his
tortilla
profession.
chips in the background.
the definition of unprofessional.
Yeah. And then that evening we came back and you started me on the trainer
Yep.
and you started explaining everything.
Is it the right release or the ready release?
It's the right release. The
I always mess
knock-on
that one
right
up.
release.
Knock on right release with
So
the mini
How would you
silverback.
describe it if you related it to a gun hunter or to a shooter? Do shooters have just
It's
like
a dry, it's
simulators?
like a dry
I was
fire
going to say
mag.
dry fire. You just don't give them bullets, and they just go
Yeah,
through.
you
They'll
dry
rack
fire.
the bolt slowly. Like,
Now they have
cheek
dry
weld.
fire mags.
do they really?
Yeah, that are like poundage out.
Huh.
It's interesting.
So cheek welds, sights, squeeze.
Yeah.
Do it
so,
again.
so for any rifle shooters out there, people that shoot pistol, it was essentially Dad gave me a neutral, like a totally dead weapon, something that won't shoot. It's just a string, and it was just to practice the mechanics, the form of where your body is, where your body should be, and how the release is going to feel in an approximation. It's
Yep.
not perfect, but it's
Yep.
close enough to at least get the feel of, where the tension is, where the pressure is, where there shouldn't be tension, how your mechanics should line up, and where the bone structure should feel.
Yep.
And how you explained it made sense, a lot like rifle shooting, where it's, all right, you get your index point.
Andy did a good job at that. That would actually those points there, which I don't remember because I've never been a gun hunter. But what was really, and I say gun hunter, but anyone that's a tactical person or a weapon, someone trained
like a carbine shooter,
in any type of weapon, right? Andy did a really good job coming in and being able to take the things that I was trying to relate to Andy based on my limited knowledge in that realm.
Mm-hmm.
I was, Chad,
good
now
Lord.
you're doing water? Gee, there's bottles of water in my Yeti. Go get it. Really? Yeah, go get it. See, good game. See you in a little bit.
He's groggy. He just woke up from a nap.
Andy was doing a really good job of describing things in a way that immediately let you, as a person that was familiar with guns, immediately relate. Whereas I've always, as a teacher, I try to find something where with Joe, I know he's into MMA, I know he's into yoga.
You're talking about common ground.
Yeah, I was trying to find the common ground, and you were able to tell him some things that immediately made him understand it instantly. Do you remember what some of those were? Because
that would actually, the index point with
one
cheek
of them
welds.
is finding the cheek weld. Like it's especially
and
if you're going to shoot
bone.
Anything that is long distance. Like if on a rifle, if your cheek is in a different spot every time, you're looking through your reticle and it's like, God, this doesn't look right. There's a little bit of a shadow in the, you know what I mean? Like it's just, you're not looking through it properly, and you could have the best shot sequence and the smoothest break of the trigger, and your bullet's not going to go, because the bullet's going where it's aimed. You're not touching the rifle in the way that you were before. So that cheek weld, which I was using when talking the priority being to find your anchor point, like that is your priority. And then with the grip,
anchor point being your hand that holds the string, where it is anchored onto your face.
First knuckle is under your jaw.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I think the other one that worked for him was actually having it in his hand, and just that was more talking about climbing and using the efficiency of your joints as opposed to and I did it too when I was learning how to climb. Your first few times, especially when you're climbing above your own protection that you're setting, you're so exhausted by the time you get to the top of your pitch. And the person will come up behind you, and they're like completely fine. They're like, dude, I'm obviously a pussy. I suck. And what you don't realize is then you watch them switch, and that new lead climber goes up, and they're just over gripping everything, and they're relying on their muscles, especially guys. Right. But they're like hanging on like a half pull up. Whereas the pro climbers, the really good people, they plant their feet and they'll always sink down and they'll let their joints absorb the load as opposed to their muscles. So then when you need the muscle, you actually have the muscle and you're not smoked out. And climbing is mostly with your legs. That's not very germane to what we're talking about right now. But
well, and I'd also like to say it's that relaxation, on the trigger hand on my right hand, because I'm a right-handed shooter, as well as the sight alignment and not being front sight focused.
Yeah, that's the
important
big one.
That you said
was
that to
actually
me,
very, very
because
important.
that's something that we do as rifle shooters or pistol shooters, right?
Pistol shooters and rifle with iron sight.
Yeah, and especially because it's a colored reticle there. Like I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't have necessarily realized that I was doing that without you saying it, but now I'm softly focusing through those two sights.
I'm was a
using
really
a soft
good
focus and like having a target, which makes the target shooting today easy because I'm like, okay, well. So it's on there enough.
And for people who are confused what we're talking about, when I learned how to shoot pistol, and I'm sure it was the same for you, Trevor, it was, draw the pistol, present it to the target, and your eye is literally burning a
locked
hole on your front sight. Everything behind it should be blurry.
Yeah.
And in your peripheral, not really your peripheral, because it's right in front of you.
Your depth of field.
And you'll have 3 dots across, assuming it's a dot, or it could be white, green, white, whatever it might be. But your sole focus is front sight, and that's all you're staring at. And I found that was my natural inclination the first time that I picked up a bow, because it's actually
right there,
right at the same distance if you think about it that a pistol front sight is. So I'd draw back and I'd sit there and I'd look at it, and it made me want to go right now.
That reticle's 5 inches away from your fingers. It's like right like a pistol.
Well, it's because I was just staring at it, and then every time you stare at it, all you can see is like, oh my God, it's moving. Oh my God, it's moving. Oh my God, it's moving bigger. I gotta fire now.
Entire attention.
But shit. I don't know.
But that's what you don't want to do, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
And I don't know if that is what people are doing when they talk about target panic in the archery world, but to me, it makes sense that there's some. Because when you taught me,
that is the thing right there. That is the thing.
When you taught me at your house,
and I'm glad you said it, because now, granted, I have a background in, and I'm teaching combat rifle and pistol now, so I can understand just eliminating that out of my mind. Like, okay, just don't even worry about the damn thing, because if it's there, centered up, and by center, like in quotations, it's basically centered between the peep sight and that actual sight. It's good if it's on target. It's gonna move.
That's another key point, I think.
At full extension, and you're holding a quarter of the poundage back.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
For Andy's listeners, this is so important because there's a lot of guys out there that may already be shooting a bow, but just may say, I've never really found it to be that much funner. I'm not that much more accurate with it, and they just given it up on it. And this could be the separator.
One of the biggest things for me was what you told me at your house the first time we took a shot at the elk, because I think you actually said, you're like, are you looking at your front sight or are you looking through it at the target? And my answer was I was looking at the front sight. And you asked me that. I remember because I came back to draw, and you had made a comment earlier in the day that my shots would almost always go off at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So then I draw back at 80 because you're like, hey, you want to shoot long distance?
Kapow.
And I was like, yeah, sure, of course. What do you think, 30? He's like, no, sissy, dial it to 80. And
dial it up.
But so I draw back, and then I'm sitting there, and like the pin's moving, and I'm just looking at the pin, and my shot timing probably quadrupled. Then I caught myself while I was doing that. I'm sitting there, I'm like not breathing normally, then my vision's starting to go, and then you're just like, you know what, that's close.
Yeah, and you mentioned that today to me because I did it once because I sat outside and shot
he noticed
the block target
he noticed it quick.
I caught it because I recognized the difference,
hours.
and that's why I asked you what you were looking at.
And I said it immediately.
When he told me,
I saw the sight.
Yeah, look through not like stare at the target. I would describe it, for me, I have a soft focus on both.
Yeah, it's a soft focus.
And what I've noticed that is it mentally or emotionally or whatever it is calms me down, because I can see that the pin's moving, but I'm not really worrying about it because I know it's moving where it needs to be. And then I literally try to shut that off, and I try to think of and focus on that one particular muscle in my back and just pull. And I've actually found some of the times where if you would have asked me where that arrow go, I'd be like, that thing broke a little bit to the left. Freaking bullseye.
Yeah.
It's almost more important. Again, take everything I say with a grain of salt, but I find it's almost like, for me, if I can get that shot to break, it's almost like the arrow is like a little heat seeker. Even if it, to me, in my eye, I'm like, God damn it, that was low right. I'll pull up the binos and talk to my neighbor like, I meant to say X. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, well, that tracks from last night into today. Like, what you had me doing, going from the string, initially felt foreign and alien. Like, I'm either really holding a lot or it's just snapping immediately. Or not holding enough, and I'm like pull, because I wasn't preloading it and holding it where it needed to be. And then once you handed the bow over, it was the same thing. Letting up on the safety and kapow immediately out there, or it's pull. But as you were talking me through everything that's going on, like having the correct bone on my left support hand, and keeping that relaxed, which is going to be something I'm going to have to think about all the time.
No Vulcan choke.
Need to.
And we're talking about the actual hand grip position on the bow handle itself. I teach a T formation, so when an archer is at full draw, your front arm is half of a T with your legs going
parallel
down.
with the dirt.
And then your right arm is also a T, except your hand is inverted because it's at an anchor position on the face. But when that T starts, if your elbow starts to bend too much or the front shoulder starts to come up, you start to change the shape of that T. So structure and utilizing your skeletal anatomy is critical to being repetitive. And when you are relying on muscle, either in your hand by holding the grip, what happened is when you were tense and you were not really sure how archery should feel, you were tense, and then as you get more relaxed with it and comfortable and you lighten your position or your grip, you start to change the pressures on the bow itself, and it's no different than a gun. If some days you shoot with full tension, if you have a pistol grip and you're just locked on that thing like a rock and torquing it versus the next time when you're have control of it but you're not overly tight, I think you just get two completely different results.
Yeah, and it was good. And the reason I came to Dud was through Andy, like knowing your background and how much you had done that kind of teaching, like being able to convey the information in a way that made sense and was correct with all of the experience and the background. And we did that for years, like learning how to learn. Like I'm not gonna.
There's nothing worse
I'm not
than
gonna
going to
shortchange
somebody.
myself and go to somebody who's gonna bullshit me.
Not or worse than that is somebody who's actually really, really, really good, but couldn't teach to save their
Couldn't
life.
tell you.
They are
had
so
no
good,
clue
and what
how to
they
do
do
it.
works for them, but they literally cannot improve somebody else. That to me is I would rather be bullshitted
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
watch somebody who is amazing. It's like,
Struggle.
are we talking the same language? Like Sprecken's the archery, like,
Yeah.
or whatever it may. But that to me is more frustrating. I would agree. As
Yeah.
far as teaching goes, your ability to convey a point it's ridiculous.
And that's
at
why
times.
I
you
want
know,
to
like,
take a tactical class with you because I think
Yeah,
if I did
should.
that, I think my teaching would be instantly better.
especially for
because
people
I
who
don't have
well,
that
you'd be able to
background.
convey you'd be
terminology.
Able to, you'd be able
Yep.
to understand the terminology and be able to say this feels like it, even if it's only the one time. At least you'd be able to say this feels like this does this, because a lot of the shooting we're doing now is so relaxed and so stood up and so efficient because it's muscular efficiency is what you're going after. You know, like bow hunting can be the same. If you're at draw.
Yeah.
Do you want to be fighting that thing, or do you want to be relaxed and be able to hold it and move around and get to the target you're going to be firing at?
I'm so used to surprise shot, surprise shot, surprise shot, and I know that when I have that, my accuracy, honestly, if I have a bow that is 100% set up for it and I'm practicing just a little bit, I think at 100 yards with most freehand
you'll
gun
win.
shoot-
You
yeah.
would win. Offhand shooters? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's very many that would be able to beat an archer that's at the level that I know I've shot at when
The
I'm at my
mistake most
prime.
people would make is they would want to put glass on their rifle, and they'd be better off iron sight.
iron sights, yeah.
I think if I know right now when I shoot my pistol, and maybe it's totally the wrong way, but I'm just steering a hole through the target and just like, God, this trigger has so much travel, and I'm going and going and going. I'm trying to get a surprise shot.
No, you should. That's the same principles for marksmanship.
We were talking about that. We were talking
Maybe
about
I'm
that
going
last
too
night.
slow. Maybe my
Or
focus
you're
is
just not
different
prepping
too.
it to the wall.
Yeah, you're not same
That's
thing.
all it is. You're
So
not
Because they're two-stage
like,
triggers.
It's like
that part I understand.
like not sitting in the well.
Valley. It could
You're
be
not
a well.
yeah, it's a well.
could be a well.
It's a deep, deep space. You're not sitting in the valley, right? So you're not prepping it all the way to that weighted prep spot
Right.
on your trigger. So, like, even if you get it on a really light trigger, like guys that are shooting those competitions, like 2-pound triggers, they can prep all the way until that quarter of a pound when you just touch it and it goes off.
I fire those accidentally often. When I pick them up.
I always do. Let me
That's
try
what,
this. Cack! Whoop! That was 2.
Well, that's what's cool about that right release trainer
Mm-hmm.
that I sell, is because that helps people identify the amount of preload they can put on their triggers or on their release. There's different styles of release, and I'm sure there's different styles of gun triggers too. But
they all
the
have
release
slack. They all have slack, and you got to pull it till that slack is gone.
Yep.
And then you know any energy that you impart beyond that is actually moving the sear.
And that's the same thing with this. And you guys have identified, like, oh, you're holding real heavy on the wall, and that's awesome to hear and awesome to be able to work through. And like that's why I came here wanting to learn from you, is to be like have somebody look at me and go, no, you're holding heavy on the wall. And that way now when I'm out there on my own, I'm bringing it back and going, like, I'm like
that?
internally verbalizing, relax, letting it free a little bit, just staying on the safety, like, okay, all right, like check in, feel where that muscle's supposed to be feeling tension, off the safety, and that's when those are like off, just that little bit of pull, and it's going.
what's hard for me is I don't get to judge myself from, an outside view of how I'm coaching.
Yeah.
But one thing that I feel like I do as a coach that really helps me, I don't know, I think it helps me get the people to do what I'm wanting, is I'm able to identify what a lot of people are thinking because I can see it happening before it happens. And a big part of that is because I was self-taught the wrong way so long, and I found I tried to figure my way out of all these holes to where now when certain people start to go down certain things, or I see a shot taking a long time, or I see certain breakdowns, I'm like, and there's a few times I stopped you and I said, okay, this is hard, isn't it? And you're like, what? I'm like, it's hard. And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay.
You busted me.
Yep.
You got me. Is it because this is taking 15 seconds, or
I think taking the you know, a little bit of tactical training from you guys would really probably help me do a podcast where I could almost coach archery better in relation to how really good tactical gun people think or are taught, because I have no idea how they're taught.
But I think you did a good job, because the parallels are so
they're closer than you think.
They're so relevant and they're so close. Like a lot of the stuff you were saying, I was parroting back, but with maybe one word different, because that's exactly how we're taught how to shoot, and that's how we're taught how to move. And that's why when Andy said, no, yeah, that's who you need to learn from, dude. Like, that's it, period. And I'm glad that we did that progression exactly like that last night, because that's how you teach somebody how to shoot a weapon.
Well, you have 1 week to practice now, and then
I have 1 week, and then it's big furry bears.
We have 5 minutes, and we got to wrap it up because I got to catch a flight. So, you want to give them any advice on the hunt coming up, or what do you want to talk about the last 5 minutes? You can't give away all the secrets.
No,
the fun stuff
hold
we have
your
coming
horses.
up. Yeah.
All right.
You can't talk about the chicken recipe or the turkey recipe. You can't talk about the other fun stuff. What else you got?
Well, I'm just your guest. It's what you got.
What do you got on my podcast?
Yeah, what do you got? What do you got?
I got nothing. I got planes, trains, and automobiles for the next 36 hours. It's never ending.
Pretty much.
And then a week off, and then planes, trains, and automobiles to British Columbia.
To lots of fun.
That's where our next hunt's going to be. It's this microphone set is going to be
flying
a long way from an airport, across the lake, up a mountain, and in a cabin.
And hopefully not surrounded by bears.
4 bearded dudes. Or 5.
I really do think that based on your guys' background, and at least some of the things that I pick up on as I've hunted with Andy, and then got to hunt a little bit with you yesterday, I think the biggest thing that separates guys from your background or your type of training from being really good hunters is the only missing puzzle is understanding the true behavior of what your target is.
Yeah.
And the thing is, they're all animals with different qualities, which is what you're learning.
Yeah.
Continually.
And I would add the wind from the close-in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a different animal. But yeah, I still sit there.
Yeah, because humans don't really pick up on our scent like that.
If they do, you're doing something wrong.
Or you're this close.
Yeah. But I mean, I still...
Hobo warfare?
Yeah. I think there's a video of that was made. The guy got put in jail for it, doing it in New York. But I'm actually pretty sure that video existed. But yeah, I still like for me, and you'll experience this, like the dossier of, I just feel better about it, but like I'm interested to hunt elk again later in the year, and okay, this is what I saw last time. Are they going to do that same behavior? This is what they can see. This is what they can smell. Can I get away with moving right now? Should I crawl? I mean, that's all that stuff is. There's a lot of puzzle pieces in my brain that are constantly moving around.
We talked about this. I was talking about that to him.
This would be a good subject, too.
I was saying, so base jumping, to me, the stuff that I enjoy about base jumping so much and why I continue to jump and why I don't jump the same object almost ever. I only have a couple repeats to a certain degree, besides the prine. It's just a goof-off object. Anyway, is the puzzle behind it. How do I get there?
Yeah.
How do I approach it? How do I make it safe? What's the perfect weather? What's acceptable weather? Some of those objects take 2 days to figure out, and some of them take a month. Like, there were some places we went that took every single day returning.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what's the best time of day, what's the best weather, how's the best way to get there. And I was saying that to me, that relates to hunting. Like, it's going to be such an incredibly interesting thing to do and lifestyle to have, because it's exactly the parts of base jumping that I love.
Lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like I call base jumping a lifestyle because it is. It's you're making a choice with your entire life.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing now that I'm seeing with hunting and hunters is you're choosing a lifestyle of being outdoors, figuring yourself out, helping other people out, family, it's conservation. Like, there's so many parts of this
impacts your decision making
beyond
outside
the
of the
8
hunt,
seconds that you interact with an animal.
Yeah.
See, what I said was, even though turkeys see good, they don't smell, but they hear good. If you apply those principles and you go on a stalk, it could work perfectly for turkey A, but turkey B might have had a landowner, which he lived on the property, which every time he, gobbled off a tree, the guy went right to him. So he might have the experience of, if I hear that and the sound's coming closer, I'm
out of here.
This might not be the right thing. So what we don't know as hunters, we might know the behavioral patterns, but what you don't know is, okay, this elk, has he been hunted? Has he encountered hunters 15 times to where his sixth sense is level 10 versus the elk
He's
that's
like,
never.
That's a dog shit call.
I'm
out.
the turkey. Dog shit call. I'm out.
Like the turkey that got away from Chad.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But is that why they react so differently? Like some will hear a call and they'll move towards it, while others will call first, and they all just have their own life experiences that are going through their heads.
Yeah, that's
obviously a hypothesis, but
yeah. Well, remember how Barklow talked in the podcast about? He said, some places you go, you can let out a bugle and elk respond.
Yeah.
Other places, if you bugle, your hunt's
gone.
over.
Yeah.
Like, they know
that's fake.
We're not bugling.
Yeah.
There's wolves here. As a elk herd, we've all decided no bugles. Everyone votes, yep, no one's bugling. Wolves are around. Let's not get us all killed. And then all of a sudden, here comes,
dumbass.
Andy with his first bugle call. And they're like, oh, okay, we're out. We've seen it.
You guys see that mountain 3 hills away? We'll meet you there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's the thing that you don't know. You don't know how many times, right behind Andy, there's a giant whitetail on the wall. And
smiling at him.
Let's just say every time that buck came through the field, as he was growing up, the landowner decided to blow his grunt tube at him because he wanted him to come over. The first time or two, he probably came over and looked, but then once he circled him and got his smell, he started to build that association.
Yeah.
Well, if that deer comes through the woods and you're like, okay, he's close, I think I'm gonna have a shot, but I'm just gonna blow a grunt at him, and all of a sudden you're like, brr, and he's just like, oh, there's that freaking guy again, and then you say, everything was fine. I just grunted at him like I do every deer, and he just floored it. So that's the things that you don't know. You know their patterns, but you don't know their experience, and you don't have the intel of what every single animal's experience is.
Time to learn about the big furry ones.
So that, for people, I think we eventually answered where should you start, where for gear, where to go for instruction, how you started Trevor off, Trevor's thoughts on it.
And his release was a silverback, which is what I started you on.
Correct.
We actually just got some, I think they're going in stock probably by the time this launches.
This will go up Monday, so hopefully Monday, whatever day Monday is, I'll get to them out.
And I like it for those of you that are curious. We're not.
Yeah.
But now you know.
I mean, you either shoot a silverback, you suck. I mean, it's no big deal. I said that, not Dudley. It's not a paid endorsement. I just love the thing. It actually, because it, for me, it removes that. It's got to go off now.
How would you describe the? It's a release that hooks on the string and then helps you learn a process to fire the string. How would you relate it to people that are in your type of field? If there's guys out there.
It's like having a release on your whole hand where you pull it to a weighted wall, just like on a rifle trigger, like a staged rifle trigger.
Yeah.
And when you get to that wall and you can pull through and execute that shot, it's the same way. You pull through with the back tension.
Yeah.
You know where you're at. You're at that wall. You know, okay, I got another pound. Pull through the pound. Releases the shot.
Yeah, you're moving the mechanism of the surprise break from your finger to your back. So you literally, essentially, like if you're using the release,
instead of a squeeze through, it's a pull through.
Yeah, you're training. You're training the same muscle. The surprise break is what is important if you want to have accuracy. At 10 yards, you probably can get away with a whole hell of a lot.
Yep.
If you put another 0 on that, if you do anything wrong, you're going to be like, "Where'd my arrow go? Did anybody hear anything?"
And it's important to note. We talked about this. I can't remember if it was this morning or last night, but surprise doesn't mean surprise within a second. It's surprise within a tenth of a second. Like it's about to happen. Oh, it just happened. Not it's about to happen. I think it's going to happen.
That's anticipation.
That's anticipation.
Like what you're saying.
They're very different.
If you're sitting there feeling like tension in your chest because you're anxious, and you're sitting there, you're like, it's about to go, it's about to go, it's about to go. That is different than looking through your pin and just thinking pull, 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 pow, and it goes off. I know it's getting ready to go off.
Yep.
Plus or minus a second.
This is that window.
I'm not trying to force that second. I would say that's the difference. And
that's a description of the thing.
And that's it. I got
Yep.
to pack for a flight
Have fun.
until
Planes, trains, automobiles.
Cleared hot.
2 weeks
Yeah.
from now. Cleared knock. Part 2.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We are going to have some good podcasts in the next few weeks. Like I mentioned in the intro, going to be going on the road, but the podcast portable setup just keeps getting tuned in. Got some headsets now, 4 people at a time, not having to share microphones, high quality audio. So hopefully we can come back out of that trip with some amazing stuff. And yeah, thank you to everybody who is writing the reviews on iTunes. There is going to be a new shirt coming out here, I would say, in the next 2 weeks. A new product coming out this week that I will say right now is not going to work for everybody. It's something that I have used. People ask me all the time about my EDC, which stands for Everyday Carry. This is something that I carry with me every day. It's not gun-related, people, so don't get super excited. But it's about being streamlined and being efficient and not having a massive bulge in your pocket from a Costanza wallet. But you'll have to wait probably until Tuesday for it to come out, unless you're listening to this months from now, in which case you might as well just go to the website and pick it up. But thank you for the support. Thanks for everybody for listening. Thanks for telling people about it. Thank you for sending me pictures of people wearing the podcast stuff out in the wild. It's definitely appreciated. Definitely